Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. In a big setback to the State Bank of India, Supreme Court today dismissed the extension application filed by the SBI, which sought an extension till 30th June for disclosing the details of the electoral bond. The order given by the Supreme Court very categorically says that SBI has to furnish all the details by tomorrow, that is 12th March. And the Election Commission of India has to publish the details of the electoral bond by 15th of March, 5 p.m. So how does this order really manifest into now politically and legally as well? There are fears that maybe that the government will try and create some roadblocks tomorrow. We don't know as of now, but Supreme Court has already ordered them to furnish all the details by tomorrow and to the Election Commission by 15th of March. Also, has this order been able to bring about the transparency which all the activists were seeking? Or are there some gray areas still left which have not been apparently addressed by the Supreme Court? Joining me now is the renowned Supreme Court lawyer, Sanjay Hegde, who was also one of the lawyers in the electoral bond case. So thank you so much for joining. Mr. Hegde, first of all, a very big congratulations on this order which has come today. And so how does one read this order today, which the Supreme Court has given with clear instructions to the SBI, clear instructions to the Election Commission? So what are we really going to see by tomorrow evening?
What we are going to see by tomorrow evening is a list of the people who bought election bonds and when they bought it. Because from 2019 onwards, the State Bank of India was supposed to keep those lists separately and provide them to the court whenever required. So you are going to see who bought which bonds worth how much at what point of time. Bonds were given in different tranches a few months apart. So there will be a list. It may not be that you can identify the exact buyer of the bond, of the person who wanted to transact in an electoral bond. For instance, a company, say an industrial group X, for instance, wants to purchase bonds. It may have purchased through one of its subsidiaries, and nobody knows how many subsidiaries each industrial group has. And sometimes they are subsidiaries of subsidiaries and all that. So there can be cutouts that. It may also be that people would have asked other people to buy bonds on their behalf, then taken over the bonds from those other purchasers. Say, supposing somebody asked their lawyers to buy bonds for them. And then took the bonds, then gave it to a third person, who then gave it to a fourth person. And finally, before the 15 days were up, it was finally given to the party of choice. So you are going to therefore have a list of the first buyers of each of those bonds, and you are going to have a list of the last party which put it in the SBI account to encash the bond.
No, but would it not be important to know?
These are two separate silos.
Right.
The interconnections will have to be worked out.
Right. So how will that be worked out? Because that's the question which I had in mind, that these intermediary platforms, which must have, transacted, how would we come to know the details? Will those details come out?
See, this will be specific data. Then there is a lot of data in the public domain. There are companies' balance sheets and everything which are put up on the sites of the registrar of companies. You will also know the directors of even the subsidiary companies and things like that. So there will be data in the public sphere which would be available. And in fact, I would think that it would be a good idea to for somebody to cache all the data which is there on the registrar of companies' sites, for instance. So that then you start figuring out. Supposing there is an industrial house which is working primarily in one or two states in India, and that state has elections scheduled. Now, if you were to work out that a subsidiary or a subsidiary of that that industrial house bought electoral bonds, and that around the same time the political party cashed almost the same amount of electoral bonds, then you can make a reasonable deduction that there was a PIN. And then thereafter, if the party which got the donation came to power, and a contract or the other was specifically given, or if certain criminal proceedings mysteriously were closed, then all these inferences can be drawn. Right now, at least let us get the two data points. From those two data points, what permutations and combinations can emerge when married with other publicly held data, that is where the actual scope of inquiry and private citizen inquiry will lead.
The day when this verdict came out on 15th of February, after that, I had done your interview for the Federal, where you said that, the government will try and put an application. They will not come out with details. And this is exactly what happened. Today, I'm asking you the same question, since the Supreme Court has ordered and given very clear instructions to SBI and ECI. Would there be any constraints on the government's part tomorrow as well, while they publish the data? Because this is like a very specific data. Can there be any roadblocks from the government side tomorrow?
Well, technically speaking, the government did not put in a roadblock. It was the SBI which did. Right now that the SBI roadblock is cleared, what other instrumentality is there? The Election Commission is an independent commission. It is not bound to listen to the government. If it voluntarily does something, then also its credibility would suffer. So I don't think these things will be a risk. Does the government want to try anything which is like getting cute with the court to cite an Americanism? I don't think they will risk it, because in addition to what the court can or cannot say, the government now risks being judged by public opinion. Already, there are all these statements going around that those who came saying that they would reveal the names in Swiss banks are worried about the names that the SBI will reveal. So there is a public cost to slow walking this, and especially when elections are barely 6 to 8 weeks away, I don't think that would be the right way for the government to go. Not unless there is something majorly embarrassing which they want to keep hidden at all costs.
Right. Mr. Harish Salve today was, he looked almost like on a back foot, and people haven't seen Harish Salve, in that form really. So was he really doing an indefensible job? Of course, that was his job. He was supposed to defend the SBI, but was it really a difficult task for him, which he couldn't?
Well, Justice Kaju used to have that saying that no lawyer can be bigger than his brief. Lawyers can add luster to a brief. They can bring out the various facets of a brief. But if the brief is merely to brazen it out, at some point or the other, courts do tend to look askance. So when the argument was made that it would take time to correlate the data, the court just looked straight at them and said, who asked you to correlate it? Read our order. Our order says, you please publish this data point, you publish that data point. That's all that has to be done. And you yourself had told us that you have that data.
Yes.
So therefore, my old senior used to have two C's for handling the court. Either convince them or confuse them. This time, neither was possible.
But there was another point which I was wondering, and I think you would be able to answer. Today, when this order was being read out, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud very clearly said that we will not think of going into the contempt as of now. But the point is that Justice D.Y. Chandrachud very well knew that this extension application was filed on the basis of a very, a false data, which everybody knew that, this was a baseless argument, a baseless plea which they had given. But knowing that, couldn't have Justice Chandrachud taken a harder stand, maybe some kind of a punishment for the SBI chairman? Many people have been talking about that as well, that he could have come harder on the SBI chairman.
See, courts operate firstly on with governments on a presumption of constitutionality. That normally governments do the right thing. Maybe the government thought it was doing the right thing or it was asking. It had its doubts. So you presume that they're telling you they're acting in good faith. You do not easily come to a conclusion of bad faith. The second part is that it's a question of priorities. Would you much rather have the data or would you much rather send a man to prison? So the obvious answer is first get the data out. And contempt powers are mostly about securing compliance. So first secure compliance and then decide that if there has been willful non-compliance, what do we do? So that's why they told the SBI that, okay, by tomorrow banking hours, you reveal the data. Then if that doesn't happen, we will see what we need to do.
Right. But does this order really impact the image of SBI? Legally speaking, and in legal terms, the way they have, brazened it out, the way they have filed an extension application on a very, very baseless premise, has it really, I mean, this hasn't gone down well with the people, and with this Reporters Collective story also talking about the fact that there is enough evidence to show that SBI had given a lot of data to the finance ministry within 24 hours and 48 hours, and then filing a false application in the Supreme Court. What does it really show as far as the image of SBI is concerned?
Well, the SBI doesn't have a very good image to begin with. I mean, in the public perception, the public perception is that the SBI whenever you go to a branch, the people there are always out to lunch and you keep coming in time and again.
Yes.
So it almost was as if the SBI gave the Supreme Court the same treatment. We are out to lunch, we need time, etc., etc. Forgetting that the Supreme Court is an institution which is constitutionally bound to protect the Constitution. And when it has interpreted it, all authorities under Article 144 of the Constitution have to come to the aid of the court and not to subvert it. So yes, the SBI has been wrapped, but as that verse goes, "Kis मुंह से कावा जाओगे गालिब, शर्म तो मगर आती नहीं."
Right. But yes, you're right that SBI has been wrapped. But what are the learning lessons for the government? A government which almost has taken things for granted, and there have been not one but many incidents where the government thought that it could get its way around. What could be the learning lessons for the government, which is almost on its way out now? The tenure is ending. You have a Lok Sabha election, and with this order coming down heavily on the government, could there be any learning lessons?
Well, those who want to learn from even adversity. Those who do not want to learn will never learn. So if the people of India do not punish the government electorally and the government comes back elected with the same or a greater majority, then I think that like it was said about the Bourbon rulers of France, that they learned nothing and forgot nothing. That may very well be the attitude. But if, on the other hand, there is a certain chastening, electorally or otherwise, then maybe not only will the government led by this party learn, but future governments will also learn not to take the Supreme Court lightly.
But do you think that this is one of the biggest moments where Modi government has really got a big jolt from the court, given the fact that on the same day you have an order by the Supreme Court on the electoral bonds, their extension application and other stuff, and also regarding the election of the election commissioners. Today there was a plea which was filed by Jaya Thakur, to which apparently the court said that it will be done on the basis of the previous guidelines and not according to the new act. So is this getting like a big current on the same day?
Well, let's put it this way, that the government's lawyers are facing a certain amount of resistance, a certain amount of skepticism on when they make tall claims on behalf of the government in the Supreme Court. It would be for the government to introspect as to why what it is said is seen with that degree of skepticism. Hopefully, they will address the core issues and not look to brush it under the carpet or to enter into angry rebuttals of the same.
But as far as electoral bonds are concerned, people call it like a black diary where, a lot of skeletons will come out of the cupboard. So why wouldn't the government still not go ahead and resist, from from publishing the details?
Well,
or I would say SBI.
You see, when this government first came in, it said that it would get the Swiss banks to reveal the names. That was 10 years ago. Swiss banks revealed some names. But did any of that money come back? Did anybody get the 15 lakhs that was promised? So yes, maybe some names, some companies, some subsidiaries, some electoral trusts may get exposed. But as a whole, the power of telling the government that, look, this is wrong and we are going to punish you, that lies with the voter. That does not necessarily lie with the courts.
One last bit, Mr. Hegde, that this order does repose once again the trust and the faith in the judiciary. What does this order really mean for a democracy like India, which believes in the democratic ideals, and the people have been saying that, this democratic fiber is loosening somewhere as far as, with this regime, the current regime. So what does this order really mean from that aspect?
See, what is the function of a judiciary in a democracy? The judiciary performs the same function that the brakes on a car or a heavy vehicle do. If the path is wrong or if there's danger ahead, to temporarily stop the momentum. Often, I at least felt that you could not distinguish sometimes between the brakes and the accelerator. It looked like that the courts were complicit in what the government was thinking. Today, it does look like the brakes still function. And no progress can be made in any vehicle without the brakes. You need an accelerator, but you also need the brakes, lest you get overrun.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Hegde. It was wonderful having you on the program. And one appeal
Thank
to the
you.
viewers who are watching this interview, subscribe to our channel, send us a feedback, and stay tuned to The Federal.
Subscribe to The Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.